Good afternoon. Today I'm in Pudsey and I'm joined by Member of Parliament for Pudsey, which is Stuart Andrews. Stuart Andrews was elected in 2010 and he's actually agreed to interview us, to be interviewed today. So Stuart, what influenced you into coming into politics and why did you choose the Conservative Party?
I grew up on a council estate in Wales, and whilst we as a family and actually most of our neighbours didn't have much money, what we did have was sort of bags of community spirit, and people worked really hard to improve their environment. And somebody who was really key in instigating that was the local councillor. And I was quite inspired by what he was doing, and it sort of generated my interest in politics. I then started following what was going on nationally, and it seemed to me that for the best option was the Conservative Party, because I believe that actually you are likely to succeed more when you are given the tools to do it yourself rather than expecting government or local government to do it for you. And you know, I've never let my sort of background try and be, if you like, hold me back from my ambitions in life. I decided when I was 14 I'd like to be an MP, and I'm delighted that I am now.
Did you go through a councillor route first then, or was it straight into an MP?
No, I've been a councillor before. I was a councillor in Leeds City Council for 7 years for one of the wards that makes up my constituency currently. And I think that really is quite valuable because it helps you understand the sort of all the different layers of government, if you like, because actually when you're a councillor you are restricted by what you can do because of national government. But equally you are dealing with some really serious issues that affect local communities, so it was a great way of learning the ropes, as it were.
So since entering Parliament, what do you think is your biggest achievement?
I think personally one of the biggest things I've been involved with has been the campaign for the Children's Heart Unit at Leeds General Infirmary. There is a national review going on at the moment, and initially the NHS had decided they were going to close the one in Leeds, and I felt that that was a really backward step, because we are a centre of high population. And a very diverse population as well, a population, you know, that has a growing South Asian community, where there is a propensity for high levels of heart disease. So it is important that we have these facilities on our doorstep. Equally, we have all the children's services under one roof at LGI at the moment, and I think to close that would be a big mistake, because asking families in our area to go up to Newcastle or to Liverpool or to Leicester seems nonsensical when we've already got a unit here. So that's been my big campaign. It seemed impossible at the beginning that we were going to get anywhere, but actually the Secretary of State listened to our concerns, referred it to an independent panel, and they recognised that actually some of the things we were saying were wrong. Were right, and that the decision was wrong, and so they are now looking at this again, and hopefully they will decide to keep the Leeds unit open. So I think that's been one of the biggest things for me so far.
What's the process of the campaign, so in this case, because our viewers won't really know that, so how do you go about changing someone's opinion?
Well, I mean, you have to sort of do it in so many different ways, because whilst this review was independent of the government, obviously they had to answer to the government ministers. So we would lobby the ministers. We would do that both in Parliament and at the Department for Health. I, in a sense, led the parliamentary campaign, and I was really keen that we had that as a cross-party campaign to show the strength of feeling that there was in our region. But you know, the people who were the real heroes were the families and the patients themselves, because they were just phenomenal in all of this, and the staff at the hospital. And as a result, we managed to get over 600,000 people to sign a petition, which we then took to Downing Street. And all of that has combined to make a very loud Yorkshire voice be heard in London.
Nice. With regards to Pudsey itself, what do you think is the biggest challenge and what are you doing to tackle it?
Well, I think currently, I mean, obviously the economy is a big issue, because I recognise that for many families the cost of living is a real challenging issue. On a daily basis they will be thinking about how to pay their utility bills, but also how to buy just food. You know, I'm astonished each time I go into the supermarket how prices have gone up within a week. And that is obviously very difficult. I'm glad that things look like they're turning. It is obviously a long way to go yet. But that's, I think, is the biggest challenge. On top of that, though, I think are developments. we have seen huge numbers of houses being built across this constituency, but the roads haven't changed, the number of schools haven't changed, so there's lots more people fighting for, already overstretched resources and infrastructure. And that's the big issue I've got at the moment. So I'm working with local residents to try and raise this in London with the government, and I've done it in a number of debates, but equally to work with the council and to say to them that I think they could be doing a bit to help us not have to build so many houses.
With the plans for the HS2 link from the north to the south, do you think that would be beneficial to your local constituents?
I do, and a lot of people. I mean, this argument, in a sense, has been, has been quite fraught. And there are obviously a lot of people who are very anxious about it, quite anti it. And people say, why are we spending all that money to get people to London, say, 20 minutes faster? Well, that's not the issue. The issue is about capacity, because at the moment the railway lines between London and Yorkshire are already crammed. But the prediction is that the East Coast and the West Coast main lines, the two main routes going north, will be overcrowded by the mid-2020s. And then that means we're going to have real capacity problems. It means businesses will struggle to get down to London, likewise businesses will struggle to come up here. And I'm really worried that that will have a knock-on effect on our economy. Southern investors will suddenly think, actually, it's not worth going up there. So we've got to build a brand new line to deal with that capacity. If you have a brand new line, you may as well make it a high-speed one. And it will also connect, Leeds and Birmingham. It's horrendous trying to get to Birmingham on the train at the moment, but if we can have this high-speed link, I think it will be great for future generations. And if we don't do it, I think the north will get left behind. And that's already happened in the past, and I don't want to see it happen again.
Do you use the line regularly from here to London?
I do. I mean, most weeks I will get the train down to London. And sometimes, it's a great service, and many times it runs on time. But if you go in those busy periods between 3 and 7 o'clock, you are lucky if you can get a seat before Peterborough. And you are lucky if all the air conditioning is working and all of that, and it's not always a pleasant journey. So I think we've got to invest. Countries like Turkey are investing. They've got over 1,000 miles of high-speed rail, and we've got something like 60 miles of it. It really isn't on. For the country that invented the railway, we should be ambitious about this.
With the rise of the tuition fee now to £9,000, do you think there's anything in the pipeline to reduce that in the near future?
Well, in a sense, I'm rather hoping that in a bit of market economics comes in here, that actually students who are looking at going to university will think to themselves, well, hang on a minute, why am I paying £9,000 for that university, when at this university, which is even better, I can pay the same amount and get a better course. So I'm hoping that it will start to level out the fees a bit, and that will mean that people can then decide where they want to go based on what they think they can afford in the future, and the sort of courses that they want to do. But also, I would say to students who are going to university, I'd say to them, you're paying for a service now. You have a right to say what you want from that, and you should demand it from your university. It isn't just for universities now to say to you what they will offer. You are the people who are deciding on the course that you want. And I have to say, voting for it was one of the most difficult things I had to do, because you don't want to saddle people with debt. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, when you look right across all the public sector payments that we have to make, we couldn't carry on the way we were, because when I was at school, I think it was about 17% of students went on to university. That's getting up to 50% now, and we couldn't have afforded to carry on the way that we were, unfortunately.
Are you linked with Leeds University or the Leeds Met?
A little bit, only insofar as they will keep me updated. But obviously, I've got Leeds Trinity University in the constituency, and I try and go there as often as possible. They have a fantastic journalism course there, and I have been subject to many a good grilling from the students there. So I try and keep in with the universities, and certainly with the Conservative Future organisations that we've had in universities. I've always tried to go along and support them, because that's where my political career started. So although I didn't actually go to university.
Okay, there's been a lot of discussion on grassroots levels about the benefit system. Do you think when individuals come here from the EU that they should be entitled to a benefit?
I think this is one of the issues where where the Prime Minister is going to have to go to Europe and start renegotiating the deal, because I think what's worrying me is that people, and let's face it, there are two different issues here. One is that those stories we read in the papers, and we shouldn't believe all the stories we read in the paper, because actually it's not true that you can just turn up and claim everything. But it is true that some people obviously have been coming here and being able to get benefits and then send them home. And that causes resentment and frustration, because we are, thankfully, one of the best nations in the world for helping people when they're in difficulty. So our benefit system is there as a good safety net, but it can't be abused. So I would say that I want the Prime Minister to go back and renegotiate our deal and look at this issue particularly to see whether or not we can make sure it's a fairer deal, not just for the British taxpayer, but for everybody, because the last thing I want to see is resentment in other people getting benefit, because I just think that will probably quite difficult and dangerous for future community relations.
Talking about the Prime Minister, at the moment he's got his campaign or his idea about blocking pornography and explicit images online. Can you give us a bit more information about that? Because obviously we only see what the media wants us to see at the moment.
Well, he charged one of my colleagues, Claire Perry, with the job of looking into this, and she'd done quite a bit of work in this, of course. And, you know, I think obviously what we'd say is all adults have a right to you know, look at what they want, so long as it's not affecting the health and safety of another individual. So obviously, any child porn or anything like that is just abhorrent, and it should not be on there. And if Google can help in getting rid of that, then they have a moral obligation to do that, I think. But also, I think it's sort of making the systems absolutely secure, so that if you have to prove that you're over 18 before you look at a pornography site, so that children don't have access to it. I know that there are lots of safeties on there already, but some of them, I mean, I look at some of the kids these days and they're brilliant on their computers, and it worries me that these things could be overridden. I think there has to be a responsibility on the providers like Google to do their bit and to do their fair share in making sure that this is managed well, and that anything that is offensive and violates another human being shouldn't be on there.
Talking about technology and children, obviously they are probably a lot better than we are. I know my little brother's very good at it. Do you think that should be taken into schools? Because I know the new education curriculum has just come out. How do you think that will develop as the time goes on with children having new technologies and things?
Well, I remember when I was at school, there was a big debate about whether we should be allowed to have calculators in school. Now that shows how old I am. But it seems ridiculous now that we wouldn't allow, calculators to be used. And I think when technology has been invented, then we should make sure our children know how to use it and maximise its potential, because we are in this, as the Prime Minister calls it, a global race. We are going to have to compete with some of these fast-growing economies of China, India, Brazil, and many, many others that are doing superb work. But we've got to make sure we've got that edge. So making sure that the children that go to our schools understand how to use our technology to the best advantage is absolutely paramount.
With regards to religious festivals and days in your constituency, how do you kind of send on your best wishes on that day?
This has always been an issue that I've found a bit difficult, because I don't, I don't want to be one of those patronising people that thinks, oh, I know you need to have a card for your religious festival. I don't send out Christmas cards, for example, to the whole constituency for exactly the same reason. So what I do is, when I am invited by groups, I will always try and go to show that actually I am the MP for the whole community. And actually, when people come into my surgery, I don't look at what their background is. I don't look at what their faith is. I don't care, because actually what I care about is the issue that they're bringing to me. But having said that, I'm going to the I've been invited to a dinner for the celebrate the independence of Pakistan coming up. I've got I think there's a mailer in West Yorkshire later in Bank Holiday Monday, where an invitation has come along to. So I will try and go to those, and likewise, working with the Jewish faith, whichever faith it may be. If they've got an issue, or if they want me to come along to an event, then I'm happy to be there, because You know, when I get elected, I'm not just here to serve Conservatives. I'm not just here to serve people who come from my background. I'm here to serve every single person who lives in this constituency.
So the purpose of the Your Britain, Your Say initiative is to encourage the BAME voters to actually go out and vote. What would you like to say to those voters?
What I'd like to say is, you know, sometimes, and this happens across the board actually, I listen to some people who talk to me about, you know, their beliefs, and I think, oh, you know, they're conservative values that you're talking about, they're conservative policies that you believe in. And I say that to them and they go, oh no, I've always voted Labour. My grandfather did and his grandfather did. And I think, well, hang on a minute, you know, you've just said what, you know, is a conservative value. And so I would say to them, to everybody, when you're thinking about who you're going to vote for, don't just vote for who you think your family has always voted for. Think about what you think is right to serve your community. Who is the best to do that? Which party offers the policies that you think are best for your community, your country and your family? And I think when you look at that, you will see that actually the Conservative Party, and that's where I drew, you know, my beliefs from, they offer the values that I want for my country and for the future of my country.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. If you have any follow-up questions for Stuart Andrew, or if you have any questions for any other Member of Parliament, please send them to yourbritainyoursay@gmail.com and I'll do my best in getting them answered. For now, keep an eye on our website, www.yourbritainyoursay.blogspot.com, and on Twitter @your__Britain for updates on our next video.